This is sort of what we've been charged with covering today a little bit, just touching on healthy home, healthy planet. We've covered a lot of the healthy planet piece already, just with talking about embodied carbon, the health, the sort of regenerative nature of the materials, the anti-pest, anti-fire, sound, all the sort of unique qualities of hempcrete and hemp materials in general for building, hemp bats included in hemp board. But I will touch on at the very end a little bit on just one more carbon resource for you guys, if I hadn't mentioned it before when we were talking about the beam tool before. So I'll jump right into sort of indoor air quality and contaminants. And a lot of people, when Jansara Ruth from Parsons mentioned this like a couple of years back, and really obviously everyone knows air pollution is a problem. We spend a lot of time indoors. But the third one is the one that's really amazing to me. It's like, we consume, and some people say up to 40 pounds, but 30 pounds of air a day. And so it's by volume, by weight and volume both, it's the largest thing that we consume in our bodies, well above water and air, and food. Oh, sorry, above food. So, there's a lot that we've always taken for granted. I remember back building affordable housing, and I came across this thing about DuPont Stainmaster carpet and how amazing it is that stains don't stay and you can wash it off. And then there was that study where I think they left the carpet in the mouse cages overnight by mistake, and they came back in the morning and all the mice were dead, and they were all like, everyone's like, what the heck is that? And that was the beginning of the conversation of like VOCs, things actually outgas. They have a half-life, and this is all the petroleum-based plastics and other things that we put into materials that come back, back at us after manufacture and after it's in the home. And obviously, indoor air pollution is worse because it's concentrated, and it's also worse because we're building tighter and tighter houses. And so, it's even worse when you hermetically seal the house, and then you go to I was gonna say something derogatory about certain retail establishments. I won't say that. Just know that like not all furniture, not all cabinetry, not all materials are created equal in terms of the glues that are used and all the things that, again, outgas into your house. We used to, when we started building really tight houses, we used to say, let's bake the house first, because we still didn't have options like we do now with all the healthier materials. And we used to literally turn the heat up and cook the houses to try and bake out all of the contaminants, because again, they have a half-life. And if you can kind of accelerate that and then air out the house, you've sort of tried to mitigate some of the issues with the indoor air quality. And so moving on, a lot of people heard the term sick building syndrome. It's hard to diagnose. It's hard, a lot of the sort of respiratory and what do I want to say? All of this sort of neuromuscular, all these things that are really sometimes people clearly feel but have a hard time getting diagnoses on. A lot of these things are exacerbated by our houses and our offices, and all the chemicals and all the things that are concentrated in them. So sick building syndrome is a real thing. There's been documentation, data on, at least in the office side of productivity, that's better in healthier buildings, less downtime for employees being sick, all kinds of ways to measure productivity. In our homes, of course, that's sleep, food, and, quality of the interior environment. So there are a lot of different things that contribute to indoor air quality. And they broadly break down into just sort of airborne particulates from just everything, flakes, humans, pets, dust settles and dust gets vacuumed and it still blows all over, even though you don't know where you're blowing it half the time. Any combustion appliances in general, which is sort of 1 and 2 there, the household odors and gases, but also the particulates. So wood stoves, pellet stoves. And the trend has been to get away from combustion appliances, right? So get away from the gas and the propane and the petroleum-based cooking or furnaces or boilers. And there's other things you can do to mitigate if you can't. Not everyone can just go out and get mini splits and change their stoves out to, induction tops and stuff like that. But then there are all the other volatile organic compounds, as well as multiple other ones. So I'm going to just again refer to Parsons here, because there's been a lot of work done VOCs was sort of the first thing that got flagged. No low or no VOC paints and caulks, even though there's still a lot of plastics, microplastics, and other things in the paints, which we're discovering. So VOCs was sort of the beginning of material chemical analysis, and then we started getting into these other attributes of not just the things that are added for flame retardants and to make that paint go smoother when you brush it, or but other micro biological damaging materials that are just included sometimes for no good reason, just because it makes the manufacturing process easier and has nothing to do with whether it performs better in the house or and then there's general microorganisms, and there's a lot around microorganisms related to humidity and indoor air quality. And so humidity is like a huge factor in sort of measuring the quality of interior air, for occupants. And so one of the things, obviously, that addresses a lot of these things is, first of all, using healthier materials in the first place, and then using materials that not only are just not bad, but also they can help. I'm going to hesitate to use the word scrub the environment, because there's some people that say that hempcrete magically will purify the indoor air for the next 150 years. I think we got to be careful about saying things like that, but I think there is truth in the humidity control in particular, around stabilization of humidity levels, this moisture battery that hempcrete is. And that really goes a long way towards improving indoor air quality and also occupant comfort. Comfort's hugely driven not just off temperature, but also off moisture. Another way to break down some of these hazards on the left here is some of the things we're all trying to get away from. Wood stoves, pellet stoves, open combustion appliances, meaning not direct vented. So even if you don't switch to electric, you can seal them, go with a sealed high efficiency system where the indoor air intake is pulled from the outside and the exhaust is to the outside, so you're not pulling from the inside air and competing for that air with that makeup air that it requires to do its combustion. Damp basements, exposed basements, there's a lot of moisture related things. A lot of buildings might have okay basements and crawls, but people do a lot of I will call it ethnic cooking, like I do with a wok, or like a lot of stir fry or steaming. So you can put a lot of moisture into a building through plants, or in case you have 4 hot tubs in your house or 3 St. Bernards that expirate. You can put a lot of moisture into your house and not really understand that that's going to actually have a big effect on humidity levels and then mold and other contaminants. So odors from cooking or from other things, selectively using fans and ventilation can get at that. Sealing up a house, but then we're again getting tighter and tighter on houses, but wanting to make sure we not just airtight, but quote unquote ventilate right was the thing for a while. A lot of people made their houses airtight, but didn't really ventilate correctly, and so they didn't have enough makeup air for combustion appliances, and they didn't have enough makeup air for indoor air quality for their occupants. Humidifier, I find it funny because when I was doing the research on this, I knew a lot of this, but a humidifier is a bad thing. Dehumidifier is a good thing. I don't know. It's all more about like balanced and systems. Like you can have a ventilation system, but it's not balanced. It doesn't really help you. So it's more of like making sure that they're smart and balanced systems. And then just steering away from things that are naturally going to store, like high pile rugs and things that are going to be hard to clean and trap a lot of contaminants. And then I always find it funny. Oh, poor outdoor air quality is a huge contributing factor. But people can't really control that. I can't control the bus idling outside. I can go yell at them, but and a lot of these things too are, there's a higher concentration of poor indoor air quality in communities of color, low income communities. And if you have difficulty with if you don't own your home, if you're a renter, that's a really hard thing. You're going to argue with your landlord that it's not just lead paint and other things. It's just the basics of indoor air quality. You might also, you're not going to just be able to say, oh, I'll just move to Colorado, to Boulder. It's beautiful out there. Nice air. So obviously hempcrete can mitigate a lot of these things. Let's see. There are Lawrence Berkeley Labs has been working on an IAQ index, kind of like if people are familiar with the HERS index from Energy Star, for rating buildings, and that is interesting. You can start getting comparing buildings to one another. How you get at that, a little bit, some of the categories are subjective, but they are humidity and moisture is one category. Particulate matter, all these various things that we were looking at. They try to measure 3 or 4 broad categories, give them a score, and they're working on that. And then, the more we can get systems that tell us one building's better than another without destroying the real estate industry, because brokers hate this stuff, without killing sales, but making it real and creating jobs, quite frankly, for people to measure these things, the more we can create healthier buildings.